right, what's going on, everybody? Hope y'all are doing well. Joel, Sin of the Day, Arabian Oud Dewan. That's a good one, brother. That is a great one right there. How you guys doing? Give me 1 second. Yeah, how you doing, Joel, man? How was your day? Sensei. Just give everybody, a few minutes to come in. I don't know how long this stream's gonna go, but I don't expect for it to be a super long one. But we've got a special guest today who is a business insider, if you will, works on the distribution side of things. He does have his own store. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. I'll give him the chance to kind of give you guys his background, so to speak, and what kind of message he wants to convey as someone who is on the inside but wants to share his insight with people. Yeah, I just wanted to give people a couple minutes to come in, and then I'll bring him on here in just a moment. Let's see here. I don't have a sin of the day today. I basically have worked for 48 hours straight coming into today, and so I just chilled at home today, and I really did not want to wear a fragrance. So no sin of the day today for me. However, I did get in Day 3 Fragrances, new fragrance, Tres Oros. I smelled a little sample they gave me. That smells really good. I plan on, probably doing like a quick review of that one. Happy Wednesday, Frag Fam. Sin of the Day. Promise from Frederick Mall. Man, listen, I have heard about Promise, and I haven't even smelled it yet, but my understanding is that is an amazing fragrance. I would need to just get a sample of it at some point because I don't think I've seen it at any stores yet. Ani, Habib, what's going on, man? Sin of the Day, Ani Banashani. Ani X, excuse me. Ani X Banashani, yeah. Yeah. Can stay for about 30 minutes. Well, man, let me get, you got to go to night shift, Joel? Well, let me get this thing going, man. I don't want you to miss everything. I know you guys can always watch it on the replay, but, I appreciate you guys for showing up here in the now, and it's good to interact with you guys. So I'm going to bring on our guest now. His name is Brennan, and he has a store called Luxe Perfume, which if you've looked in my descriptions, I actually have listed as one of the affiliate places you can go to purchase fragrances. But I'm going to let him introduce himself and kind of give you guys the scoop as to why he's here. I thought this would be an interesting conversation tonight about, you see the thumbnail and the title, right? Our fragrance discounters legit. I imagine most of you guys don't really need that question exactly answered, but he can give you a little bit more background as to how these places work, especially now that he actually has his own store and still does distribution. So without further ado, guys, Brennan, what's going on, man?
Hey, it's good to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you on the stream.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to be on and tell our story a little bit and hopefully educate y'all. And I gotta say, every time I talk to people who are enthusiasts, I always learn stuff too. So please, if there's brands and anything, please put them in the chat and we can kind of discuss. And I love learning because this is a big world. So
absolutely. Yeah, guys, we were all just kind of me and Brennan were talking like right before we started the stream, and we were talking about the fact that tariffs went into effect today, and I hadn't even thought about it until he brought it up that this is going to affect our hobby. It's going to have an effect on it. To what extent, we don't know. There's no point in making assumptions on anything, but you will see changes in pricing. To what degree, we'll see, but we'll go into a little bit about that as well. Again, Brennan is a distributor, so he is in the loop, if you will, on what might come down the road. I'm sure he hasn't had any official conversations as of yet, because again, this literally just happened. You don't really see these things like the next day. It takes some time to kind of see where the dust will settle, but we'll talk about it. But before we do that, Brennan, let me just let you kind of officially let the people know who you are, what you do, and why you wanted to have this conversation tonight.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate, again, Elliot having me on, and why I started Luxe Perfume and why I wanted to put myself out there was, I did not grow up in the luxury industry. Our industry is the distribution and the supply side is very much like the show Succession. You're kind of born into it, and I kind of came at it from a outsider's perspective. And so when I started a distribution company over 5 years ago now, one of the things that I told myself I would do was I would try to be different. And through that was kind of Lux Perfume that came about. And so what Lux Perfume, what we want to do is, of course, we want to sell our favorite brands, but for us too, I also want to educate because I live in a very unique world, right? You don't run into very many fragrance importers. And so for us, we wanted to educate everyone of how the market actually works because, fragrance heads that know all the discounters that, love these guys and they buy from all the time, know these places are legit. But a lot of people still, even through working at these discounters and working with them a lot of times, they don't understand or they don't describe how this actually works and why their items are cheaper. And a lot of that is calling out the industry, right? I mean, I look at brand websites every day, and a lot of times it's just higher and higher pricing. And for us, we wanted to describe that because I've had conversations with friends and family out at dinner, and I describe it and they go, well, that makes sense. Why doesn't everybody just buy cheaper then if it's available? And the truth is most people don't know about it. And so what I wanted to do with this platform is, just explain more about how the back end of the stuff works because no one's really going to go out there and tell you. That's the unique part, is that it's very insular. And so for me, I wanted to be different, right? And I said, hey, I'm from an outsider's perspective on this. Let's just go ahead and make this fun and call out these brands because you should not be paying $500-$600 for a $200 to $300 fragrance. It's just not how I was brought up. So that is, I guess, the long short of it for me is that I wanted to, just peek a light behind the curtain.
So the elephant in the room has been addressed. Do fragrance brands overcharge? Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Which is why it's on you guys to find the best deal that you can. So kind of address the main question I kind of posed to sell the stream, if you will. Are these fragrance discounters legit? Yes or no?
Yes. Yeah. I work with many of them personally. And I have personal relationships with a lot of them. And yeah, I can tell you that the ones that I work with are very good. They take care of their customers and, everyone's got pros and cons in businesses. But for the most part, I would say 90% of the discounters you're going to see when you're looking for a product are going to be legit. I can't promise you 100%, but the names that I know and the names that you have in your list are very good.
Cool. So where would you say that these discounter sites, where are they really getting the fragrances from in general? It obviously that's probably not a singular answer. It could be from wherever they can get it for the best price, maybe, or maybe the best stock or the quickest stock. Well, what do you think about that question?
Yeah. So I'll kind of break it down. The way I break down Lux Perfume is we've got our niche side and you've got your designer side, right? So the niche side, you're often importing that from a distributor or a trader wholesale company, generally outside of the US, and you're bringing that product in, you're importing it, and you're selling it. And generally you can get a pretty cheap price because distribution on a lot of these niche brands is not, it's not going to be as defined as something like a Versace or some, a Cody's going to have distribution here for decades now. So on the designer side, they're kind of buying from all over. And they often are, have long-standing relationships with different wholesalers, different distributors that only sell to them. Or, for example, they only have a certain allocation. So say I can only supply you with 100,000 of MFK. Well, then I just give you that allocation and we move on. We try to find another brand to work together. So yeah, they're going all over, barring tariffs, and we can get into that later too if you want. It's all over. People buy from the Middle East, people buy from Latin America, people are bringing in goods for them. Part of my strategy is we bring the goods in for clients to make it a little bit easier. And what I mean by bringing it in, I mean by importing it in here. So yeah, we're buying all over. We're literally buying, we have shipments that come in from Asia, Latin America, and Europe pretty much weekly. So it's a little bit complicated web of different countries and areas. And often too, the very interesting thing is the areas in which you live in vastly different pricing. Your pricing in Singapore is going to be very different from where you can get it in Latin America. And that's brand to brand as well too.
What would you say kind of constitutes what a price is in a specific region? Is it just kind of the value of the currency in that region? Is it how much they think something is going to sell in that region? Is it based off of the fact that maybe they didn't sell that well in that region and they're just trying to offload it to whoever will take it? How does that kind of work?
Yeah, I would say it comes down to two factors, right? So I'll give one example, which is Singapore, right? It's a very tiny island, but it's very rich. And
Yeah.
so prices are generally higher, but they're going to have better access to goods. So you can get more goods there. For example, I can buy Lalabo out of Singapore because they have better access, right? But you can't get it in France, for example. It's going to be a little bit harder to get and more expensive. And so that's part of it, is just the economy in that region. And the other part of that too is, say, France, the UAE, and some of these other nations like, the Dutch and the Netherlands, they're very export and trade focused. So generally they're going to have cheaper items. And that's generally where most of us buy our products from, is because they're built for exporting essentially. So yeah, it just kind of depends on the economic status of that country. But there's new countries that pop up all the time with different distribution and different brands.
Cool. So the short answer basically is you don't need to worry about it if you're getting a good price for it from a reputable seller. Just take the win.
Right. Yeah. And it's weird. Our standards are very high with Lux, and I can only speak to myself and some of my clients where I know them. But for us, we're very risk adverse with who we work with. And, I have partners that will not work with anybody unless they've known them for years. And, it's a pretty unique process. It's not open season. So a lot of times some brand, for example, I might be cheaper than General Shop on some brands and they might be cheaper, but that's because of certain relationships that we're going to have, right? My experience is more of niche brands. They might have better access to designer brands. So yeah, the long and short of it is it's very much relationship based, and also where you have those relationships. I'm stronger in Europe and some people are stronger in Asia. So we get different brands.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you mentioned Joma Shop. Joel put a comment. I ordered Simone Andreoli Tulum Junglescape, and they canceled my order of that one. I don't know who you were referring to, Joel. I'm not saying you were talking about Joma Shop, but it's interesting. You brought up Joma Shop because they obviously have this thing where they will cancel your order even though they told you it's in stock. How do you have any idea why that kind of happens? I don't know if you do, but that's an interesting thing that I have seen with not just Joma Shop. They're just kind of notorious for it, but I've seen it from other discounters as well because it's happened to me before. Not often, but it has happened. Why do you think that happens?
Yeah. I mean, really, these sites do so much volume. FragranceNet buys so many products a week, and it is so crazy. I met with them in Vegas, and they buy a crazy amount of products. And so I think truthfully, this is just an educated guess, is their systems can't keep up with it. So they might be getting so many different orders in and so many different brands. And especially in Gemma Shop's cases, they do so many other items, right? They're doing handbags, watches. So I think they have a hard time keeping up. Truthfully, I really do. And yeah, canceling orders suck. Fortunately, I've not had to really do that too much. We all run into issues logistically, but yeah, it's tough. And I think it's really hard running your own warehouse. And so it is the downside to that of running your own warehouse is going to be, you're going to run into issues. And the amount of issues we run into of logistics on the distribution side is almost comical at this point.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're doing their best, but yeah, I know getting an order cancellation sucks. So they've canceled an order for me too. So
Yeah, I'm pretty sure if you buy from them enough, you're going to run into it at some point.
Right.
Or if you don't run into that, you're going to run into that crazy thing where it takes like 6 weeks for them to ship it, which
Right.
I think what Joma Shop does, and obviously I have no proof of this, is if they know they're getting some stock in, they'll put it up for sale on their website, and you're just going to have to wait till it gets there.
Yeah.
But I just wish they were a little bit more transparent about that. Just tell you, which sometimes they are, but it's not consistent. Because I bought fragrances from them where they said it's going to take 2 weeks to ship, and it's here in 3 days, and
Right.
vice versa.
And it's tough because and that's why I was against pre-ordering our goods. And I don't sell goods until they get checked into our warehouse. And, I'm a little bit, I get really stuck in the weeds sometimes with that. My warehouse will say it's here, you can start selling it. But for us, I want to really make sure that if you buy an item, we get it shipped out within 24 to 48 hours, minus any holidays or holiday time, right? In Christmas area. But yeah, it's really tough. And I run a much smaller warehouse than they do. So, their issues get tenfold. But yeah, for me, we try, at least with Lex, we're trying to be consistent in telling you it's going to be there within a week. And if we run into an issue like that, we'll try and solve it immediately. But yeah, it's some of these sites, and this is the nature of it. And I'm not calling out one person in particular, one website, but a lot of these sites do not want to update and upgrade because they're making so much money, right? I mean, I know a website, and it's not anyone on your list. So I'm not trying to call anyone out, but I sat down with them for a meeting and I asked them, what are you guys doing for, marketing, SEO, all of these ads? And they go, we don't do any of that. Honestly, we just buy and restock it and sell it, and people know. And that is something to me that is kind of crazy. And that's partly why we started Lux Perfume too, is I said, well, look, we can update this stuff. I want to educate, but also have this be a little bit more modern. Some of these websites are very old, right? And so for us, we want to be a little bit different on that side.
Yeah. So Jason, I hope that answered your question. He said Lux Perfume. That's the name of his shop. And I have it in the description. It should be under the ones that have affiliate links as well. But yeah, just for anybody that's coming in a little late, can just remind them of what your store is.
Yeah, it's Lux Perfume, Lux Perfume. Elliot, I know we didn't talk about this, but if we want to do like a random giveaway or anything, I'm happy to send out a bottle of something.
Oh, yeah, you heard, I didn't say that. He said it. So, all right.
Yeah, we'll pick a random winner. I don't know how we can do that, but yeah.
I don't know either. I know they have ways. I've never even looked into it yet, just because I didn't want to go down that rabbit hole till I knew I was ready for it.
Yeah, I got you. I'm
By,
putting you
by,
on the
by
spot.
the way, I'll throw this out there to my viewers. I got a box of fragrances behind me that are fragrances that I do not want in my collection anymore. I'm going to give some of them away to you guys. I just don't know how I'm going to do it yet. Just FYI. And there's one in there that I know people would love to have. And you'd probably be shocked that I put it in there. But I'm not going to give any spoilers. But anyway, guys, if you got any questions, again, we're kind of talking about the distribution side of the fragrance business, particularly as it pertains to discounters. If you got any questions about anything, feel free to put that in the chat. We'll see if we can, get an answer.
Yeah, and if you guys have any, distribution specific questions too that I can answer, I'm happy to answer those as well. Yeah, anything fragrance related, if I can answer it, I will. I'm an open book, and that's how we run Lux Perfume too. If I've told people in customer service, look, go to Joma shop over us. They're going to be cheaper right now, or I don't have it in stock, go there. And so that's kind of our customer service mentality, is that I want to make sure that you're taken care of. And even if you just, over the course of our time, just go to, our site to learn more, that's fine. I really don't care. I want to make sure that we're all taken care of here.
Jason, no, I used all that up in elementary school, man, but appreciate it. Not the body mist. You wildin', man. You been MIA all this time. You gonna come in here wildin'. All right. Jason's a good friend of mine. He actually lives in Orlando, so I actually know him personally. But anyway, so let's kind of move on to another subject matter here. The big development of today.
Yeah.
Tariffs. Kind of said it at the beginning of the stream. These tariffs are going to affect the pricing of these fragrances. We just don't know to what degree.
Right.
What do you think some things we can expect in terms of how this might affect certain things? I know you don't really have a concrete answer because there's no such thing. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, with that disclaimer out of the way, right, that I'm not an economist, and it's very tough to predict this stuff. What the general gist of what I see happening, and so far what I've talked to with a few people once it got announced a few hours ago, was prices are going to increase. Prices have already increased, and that's the hard thing. So every March too, niche brands raise their pricing. So for us, Parfums de Marly just raised their pricing. And it's a bit of a double whammy right now on the distribution side of our retailers are going, ooh, I don't want to buy it at this price, but I'm going to have to. And now that tariffs have officially kicked in, for the time being, it's going to be a general price raise. And I think you're going to see some of these discounters out of stock more. That would be my prediction, because some of these distributors and some of these brands are going to raise pricing just due to their own raw materials increase too. And that's the harmful thing, is that this is going to be taken on by the consumers, right? We pass that cost along to a retailer, and that retailer is going to have to pass that cost along, because truthfully, some of these discounters don't have a super high margin. And I don't, know their numbers, of course, but if they're only making 15% on a bottle and prices just got increased by 20%, they're going to have to do something, right? And they're not running a nonprofit, right? There's no charity here. So that is, I would say, the main thing for us is just expect pricing and less access to some of these goods. Excuse me, I'm got a brain fog on the speech today, but yeah, that would be the main thing. And it's something where I have to talk with my freight team, and we have to see what solutions we can come up with. But with some of this generally just tariffs across the board on any imports, we can't avoid it, really.
Yeah. And I know a lot of it's going to have to do with where it's coming from. I think people already kind of knew Fragrance by, one of the most popular discounters right now. They already kind of knew that one was going to be a problem.
Right.
So I don't think anybody kind of expected Fragrance by to not have some significant price increases. But you talked about how fragrance prices go up all the time. I still consider myself someone who's relatively new to collecting in general. I mean, this is only my third year of my channel being in existence, the start of the third year, so technically 2 years, 2 complete years, and I've been collecting since like 2021. So, I haven't been in this game that long, but I've seen the prices change drastically from then to now. So
Right.
It's just the name of the game. I mean, prices are going to change. They're going to go up. Obviously, I kind of came in the era of COVID, so that's a little different. That obviously affected things. And I give a lot of fragrance brands credit to the fact that they did not raise prices for a while. They kind of waited, I guess, as long as they could until they just couldn't anymore. But yeah, you guys have to remember, when it comes to tariffs, it's not just simply the fragrance sale itself. This affects the entire supply chain. So the raw materials themselves, the prices of that goes up, the price of the fragrance is going to go up. And even if you're buying from an American brand, most of these guys are probably sourcing their fragrances from overseas. So it just depends on what's the rate of change in terms of tariffs from the raw materials and where is it coming from. So, it's just something you can whine about it, but it's going to happen. But if it wasn't tariffs today, it was going to be the brands just raising their prices tomorrow, So it's just something we have to deal with in the greater economic scheme, because at the end of the day, these are businesses. They're here to make money. They're not here to make us happy. They're just happy for our business, and we get to enjoy it as a result.
Yeah, and these brands too, it's like a lot of them are already overinflated, and of course, they're, like you said, they're in it to make money. But on the flip side is, I think this is where we try to educate too, is like, they are going to be more expensive, right? They have, like you said, and everything in there, they're going to be more expensive. But on the flip side is, don't allow this price increase to go too far, because I also know corporations, and they're going to try to take advantage of this when they can. And they're going to say, oh, tariffs, yeah, but we'll raise it by 40%, or we'll say this, right? And don't always, fight back on that, consumers. Like, and I'm not saying that in a dramatic way, but just fight back and say, you know what? Tell somebody, say, instead of going to Sephora, go to one of these guys, right? Sample at Sephora, sample at a Nordstrom's. And this is, of course, my own opinion, but sample there, but then go buy it at a discounter. And make sure you have a good return policy, and make sure you're getting taken care of. But it's very, it's a very weird time.
Yep. Boxing Sense, it's interesting that you've said that, because I have always wondered. I just haven't done any research on it, where if you buy kind of a fragrance out of season, if you will, is it possible to get it at a better price? I'd say it's possible, if particularly if people are not buying it up. You know what I mean? Because as far as the discounters go, I do think I don't know this for sure, but the bulk of the people kind of shopping at the discounters are people like us, the enthusiasts, who even know there is a thing as seasonality in a fragrance. You know, the common buyer doesn't care about that kind of stuff. So that could be a thing. Jason, you brought up a very good point. Clone brands are gonna go up too. And
Yeah.
you wonder, are they gonna go up to a point where the appeal of buying a cheaper fragrance loses its luster just a little bit?
Yeah, yeah, and the clone brands, it's interesting because they all come at different price points, right? You've got Armuff, which is going to be a little bit more, like we say, mid-tier, right? It's going to be 50, $60 generally. You can get it for cheaper somewhere. And then you can also, too, one of those things as well is these lower end brands are going to get hit pretty hard because your margin's already slim, right? I know I have a few retailers that only do brands like Latafa, and they run pretty thin margins. Now they sell like crazy. So they're like, look, I'll make 10% because I'm just selling in volumes and we're good to go. But there is that flip side of, thank you for that, by the way. If there's any pricing you guys think is out of whack too, please comment on us too. Say, hey, message us and say, hey, this is way more expensive. And we'll give you an honest answer of what we can do as well too. Say, hey, maybe we had to buy that more expensive, but digressing on that, we very much, those are brands that are very much going to get hit hard too, because the brands like Parfums de Marly, we can afford this tariff a little bit more. And at the same time, these smaller brands maybe cannot, right? Because it's already expensive. The same cost for me to ship out a Parfum de Marly Layton is the same cost for me to ship out a La Lique, but it's going to be, 1/4 of the price. So for us too, those cheaper items might have to get more expensive. And that's, again, a prediction. But these clones and all of these brands, which, Armoff and all these brands, they're great brands. But yeah, I think you might see them get more expensive. And you're going to see them probably a little less stocked, like I said. I have a feeling some of these people are very risk adverse, knowing the market, and they're not going to buy 3,000 of them anymore. They're going to buy 1,000. If they sell them out in 2 weeks, they'll just wait.
Yeah, it's at the end of the day, this is all based on economics. These are businesses. They're here to make money. If they can't do it, they're not going to take risk that they know they can't afford. And unfortunately for us, sometimes that means you're just going to have to wait on certain things to show up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would have to agree with you that I think the biggest thing you're probably going to see is stock be lower at some of these discounters, particularly the ones that just always have everything. Like you said, Fragrance Net, they may not always have exactly what you want at the best price, but they got something that you might be interested in. Fragrance Buy is kind of the same way. They've kind of really leaned into the more affordable fragrances, so I think they're going to sell out more often. And at the end of the day, we know there's a segment of Fragcom that frankly just doesn't want to spend a whole lot of money, so they buy the cheaper stuff just out of spite, if you will. So they're probably going to do that even more now if prices go up, and you're just going to see everything sold out more frequently.
Yeah, and you're going to see, it's into boxing sense, kind of off season. Something that's a little bit interesting on the distribution side is, especially of niche brands, right? Initio, all of these lines, is the discounter might stock, and we might stock a lot of those different items. But the reality is it's very tough. It's very tough to stock all of just the best sellers. So for example, when we're doing distribution, right, on say Parfums de Marly, we need to go to that brand with that distributor with a very diverse order. We need to order, more than just Delina and more than just Layton and the exclusives. We have to order a wide range. So if you like one of those brands, right, an Initio brand, a Parfum de Marly brand that is a little bit less than the best seller, but it's your scent and you want to try it or you love it, take advantage of, some of these discounts or off-season sales if people have them, because they're just trying to get rid of it because they want to just get to the best seller, which makes them money. You rarely see, at least in my line, you rarely see a discount on a Delina, but you'll probably see it on some of their other lines, like a Pegasus or whatnot. So It's just very interesting. But yeah, take advantage of that stuff.
Yeah, I agree. And Joel, to your point, he says when it comes to prices, it comes to every individual's on how much value they put on
Yeah.
different fragrances. You guys know I always kind of push this anyway. My normal viewers, I kind of push it anyway. Try not to spend money on things that you don't get anything out of.
Yeah.
I can tell you right now, my fragrance buying rate has dropped drastically. Not just because I have a kid now, it's because I'm not that impressed by things anymore, and I don't really want to add stuff to my collection that I don't find value in. Now I've still got a laundry list of fragrances I know that I want, so don't get it twisted. But a lot of the newer stuff that comes out, it's like, hey, I'll go get my nose on it, but I already know at best maybe 10% of it what is something I would deem as, I probably want to get that at some point in terms of when it gets discounted, unless I'm okay with paying full retail for it, and the only reason I would really do that is to just kind of get it and have it at that time, because it probably might take 2 to 3 years before it gets discounted in my mind, or maybe I have a relationship with a salesperson at one of these stores, and I'm like, I'll go ahead and make a sale today, but in typically I'm doing what Jason's doing. I'm looking at the fragrance at a full retail place, and then I'm going and shopping for it right there on my phone at a discounter. Yeah, and just talking to them like, yeah, man, fragrance is great. Yeah, I'm gonna get this for about $200 cheaper. Yeah, so screw you.
Yeah, I've actually tested this at my local Nordstrom's, where I went in and I used to do a lot of Creed, and so that was my first big signature scent for me. And I went in there and I was like, I'm selling all of this stuff, but I don't actually have a bottle. Let me go in and see how I like it. This is a few years ago, and I went in there and I sampled it, and I was like, oh, okay. How much do you guys selling it for? And at the time, it was about $335, and I was like, that's pretty high, and I'm buying it out. You don't even want to know, probably half of that price. And they're like, oh, but if you buy it from, and Joma Shop and all those had them pretty cheaper. And I said, well, why don't I'm just going to go buy it from them, just kind of playing the customer role. And she said, how would you know it's legit? All of that stuff's fake anyways. We'll give you $30 off. And I thought, you have no idea. You're trained to say that. And
Yeah.
I'm not trying to call out Nordstrom sales tactics per se, but I thought, you have no idea. And it's it's very weird. And I wrote a fragrance guide, and the second page of it is only sample here. Only sample here. If you want to be nice and, spend full price, that's great. But I generally have people asking me like, well, what should I do then if I don't know what it smells like? Well, go try it out if you can. Order a sample pack, order, a discovery set, something of that nature is going to be really key, because once you buy it from a Nordstrom's, you've just spent 200 extra bucks. So, and I tell people you could buy 3-4 fragrances on that budget, right? And some people don't care, right? But I try to, if I see anyone on a fragrance aisle, if I have to go to the mall, I'm kind of looking at them wincing, going, don't do it.
I actually had a talk like that with an actual sales rep at a Nordstrom, but she was like really young and really new, and she could tell I knew more about fragrances than she did. So she was actually just trying to pick my brain. So that was an interesting exchange I had. But two things stood out to me there. Number one, you said the fragrance was 300 something. What?
Yeah.
A Creed fragrance, by the way. He said a Creed fragrance was 300 something at full retail. I don't even remember the days of I don't even know if I ever was around for the days when Creeds were that price. 300 something. What's a vintage going for now? 5 something?
I think yeah, it's around 495.
Yeah, it's like almost, you might as well just call it $500. Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah,
It's pretty crazy.
I remember going to the actual Creed store in Houston. I think I told you the story a few months back. And a guy with his nephew said, I want to buy a Ventus. He go, I'll buy it for you. Walked in, grabbed a bottle, swiped his card. They said, do you want anything else? He said, nope, and left. And I thought, that guy just spent $500 and barely batted an eye. And I so badly just wanted to hand him a card, and I didn't have Lux at the time, and say, you want that for about half? I'll give it to you for half, man. Like, that's crazy. But some people don't know, or some people care. But yeah, it's very hard once you're in my industry to ever buy anything at full price. It's very hard. It's hard
when you've been baptized by the truth, you took the red pill.
Right. And
when it comes to fragrance shopping, it's like there's no going back.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I think I told you this, and I've shared it with my viewers plenty of times. am friends with the Creed representative at my local Bloomingdale's. Love her to death, but I've never bought a fragrance from the Creed counter, and I never am going to. And she fully understands that. But people come in and they just buy these bottles
Right.
at full retail without blinking an eye. Two reasons for that. Number one, they don't know any better, which I think is a lot of them.
Yeah.
Number two is these people, some of these people just have the money like that.
Yeah.
And this is the point I always try to kind of hammer home is like, guys, these brands, they are happy when guys like us, more than the more normal folks buy their fragrances, but we are not their target audience. They're trying to sell to people with too much money.
Right.
That can walk in and just be like, yeah, matter of fact, I'm not going to buy just one bottle. I'm going to buy 2 bottles, at 500 each, when you can get 5 of them for the same price from the same brand and it's the same fragrance. They just don't care. They have the money to spend like that.
Yeah, they're going to read a CNBC article that says fragrance prices are going to go up, and they're going to go and say, you know what, I should just stock up then. I'll just buy $1,000 worth of fragrances right now just to have, because I know I'm going to want this, and they'll do that. And that's part of our mission too, is we want to take some of those customers. If we just take 0.25% away from someone who's going to shop at a Sephora, they're going to save a lot of money, and we can grow our business, because that's how many people just go there because they know and trust it. And so that's part, it's one of the main reasons why I'm coming on here, is to be open and honest with people, right? And it's just not worth your time to buy from these big brands officially, because it makes no sense.
It makes no sense whatsoever. Yeah, Jason, I'm like you, man. It's like I can buy a lot of this stuff at full retail, but it just doesn't make sense to do so. I don't care how much money you have.
Exactly.
It's like when you know better, you do better.
Exactly. If I threw you $200 right now and I said, hey, that's the money you'd save by shopping somewhere else for the same exact item, most people would take that 200, right?
Yeah.
I'd say 99.9% of us would take that money and go, great, thanks. Where do I go then? And that's what we're saying here in as simplest terms as possible. Save 200, save 100, save 50, even if it's $30, right? It could be a nice dinner for yourself. That can be put away towards something else. And that is, and Pat, I paid full retail. I didn't know about discounters. And it's also because those discounters don't really do a good job of explaining how this works. Right.
I would agree with you. I mean, if you're not in FragCom, if you're not watching the YouTube videos where you got all these different people saying, yeah, you can buy from these discounter sites, it's legit. You see all that big that big cabinet back there, 95% of it is from discounters. It's legit. I test the fragrances. I know what I'm talking about. If you're not immersed in that world, it is sketchy, because that's not what you see being presented as normal. And, Pat, dude, my bottle of Oud Wood, which was the first fragrance I bought that was not a part of a collection. I wasn't collecting at the time, but it was like the first fragrance I bought that was considered luxury. And it's a 30 milliliter bottle. I paid full retail for it. I paid $160 for that. You can get I think you can get the 50 mil on some discounter sites for less than that, so, or at least around that same price. But I didn't know. And when I started collecting, by the way, I bought Jimmy Choo Man Intense, a $30 fragrance at full retail. Was proud of it. But I didn't know. I had no idea. And I was fully ready to build a collection buying fragrances at full retail. And then I discovered discounters, and then, then the rabbit hole starts. But yeah, man, some people just don't know. Others think it might be sketchy, and people at these fragrance stores, including owners of certain fragrance stores, got all the respect in the world for them, but they will spit that nonsense talking about, you can't be sure it's legit. It's like, nah, maybe when it first started, you probably couldn't be sure, but these days, I've never gotten a fake fragrance.
Right.
It's not happened. All right. And I don't have 1,000 fragrances, but I got a lot of them. I got more than a lot of people buy. I told you 2 years ago, I bought 80 something fragrances in 1 year. They were all legit. So I don't think that's a common occurrence. I'm not saying it can't happen, but fragrance discounters are not eBay.
Yeah, and generally too, hopefully, and I can't speak on behalf of all the discounters, but a lot of the ones that I work with, they'll take care of you, right? You come to me and you say, this smells really off, this is not great, we'll take care of you, right? It's because I also care about that quality, right? I don't want to sell you a bad item. And mistakes and issues happen, right? Maybe that fragrance is sitting in the sun from one of my distributors, and I import it in, and it goes bad, right? There's so many different factors that can be at play with that. But generally, I would say 99.9% of these people, especially the bigger names that everyone knows, they're not they're selling you very legit goods, or they're unknowingly selling you something bad, and they're probably going to take care of you for it. And if they don't, tell me about it and I'll call them out.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
that's not cool, right? And it's just something where, yeah, I think there's a level of customer service that needs to be had with this stuff, and that is the education part of it that a lot of these discounters are failing at. And that is something too, again, we want to try to step in and do stuff like this.
Yeah. And you know, I think it's a just kind of a side note. I think it's a wonderful time for the fragrance discounter business because I'm sure you would agree to this, and you're basically a part of it. Within, I'd say, the last year and a half, the discounter game is kind of wide open. It's like the Wild West. It's like get in where you fit in and do all you can to make your mark. Because it seems like every year the main discounters I shop at change based on new ones popping up, and I
Yeah.
like what they're doing. When I first started out, it was pretty much Fragrance Net. Then
Yeah.
I discovered Aura Fragrance out of Houston.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, everybody discovered Aura Fragrance, and they ruined that because you know they only have so much stock and they don't get stuff in fast. But
Right.
so you know I kind of check on them every now and then, but it's pretty rare. Then Fragrance Buy, that was the big boom. I got all the way up to the O Addict tier, whatever it is, the highest rewards tier. Max Aroma was around then, but they were still kind of getting their footing. Now I've bought quite a few fragrances from Max Aroma. Now you got the newer, smaller guys. I kind of think they're kind of just like you, where it's maybe one, two people running the whole operation.
Right.
Olfactory Factory, Vinba. You know, I think these are like singular guys. They are making their mark by kind of having a little bit more of a personal
Yeah.
experience with buying fragrances. Jason, I think you said you even just reach out to the olfactory guy sometimes when you have a question and he responds. Let me know if that's right or not. But what you're doing right now, I think, is the next big wave of fragrance discounters where there's actually a relationship that can be built between the customers and the store itself, as
Right.
opposed to it just kind of being this massive conglomerate. Well, maybe not massive, but it's a bigger team. It's a lot more layered in terms of structures. You're talking to the customer service team that probably has no idea what's going on in the
Right.
warehouse.
Yeah, and that's for us too. Is some of these discounters have always been retailers, and they've never been anything else. And for me, right, it's some of the goods you're buying on these discounters, I'm supplying with them, so I can also I know that background, and that's where, like we talked about earlier on, is it's very much of, hey, I know the back end, and I also know that I'm also having conversations with people, and they're telling me, and it's hard to figure out which one to go to, right? Or because most people are casual, like you said, they're not checking YouTube, they're not watching your channel, they're not in the community, they're not on the fragrance Reddit, and for them, they're like, look, I want to buy my light blue, and I want to go about my day. I buy it once a year, and that's what I spray every day before work, and that's great. And so they might just say, hey, I can spend $90, that's fine. But if they just watched a 30-second clip of you and I saying, well, you could save $30 doing that, they would, because they're just everyday people, right? And that's the majority of our market is everyday people. And they have no idea, and they think it's some big, deep insider knowledge that I have because I'm in the industry, and I'm going, no, it's really not. It's just not widely known.
Yeah, yeah. Boxing sense, to your point, I've actually been to the Aura store.
Yeah.
I've been to their storefront because they have 3 locations in Houston. They're based out of Houston, and I went to one of the locations. So, I mean, I already knew they were legit at that point anyway. I was just curious what the store looks like. Unfortunately, it kind of looks like a perfume mania, but one in the hood, basically. So it's kind of wild that they kind of have the reach that they do. But I walked into that store. I'm like, man, it is very hot in here. This cannot be the best storage for these fragrances. But yeah, they're legit, man. Okay. And Jason said, yeah. So you actually, oh, so his name's Brian. Okay, cool. I've never had a reason to reach out, so I never have. But
Brian's a great
yeah,
guy.
that. Okay, so you know Brian. All right.
I
Yeah.
know, yeah,
So
he's a
this,
personal
this
friend.
okay, cool. Yeah. So
Yeah.
to me, this is the new wave that these kind of more established discounters are gonna have to. I'm not gonna say fix. That may not be the right word because maybe they're just a different approach all over. But there's a benefit to them kind of taking this to heart. I think having that personable relationship with your customers where you can reach out and get a more clear answer as to what's going on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
reviews kind of all over the place. I mean, I could see that. You know, they got popular very very fast, and when that happens, it can be a little chaotic for a brand because everybody was asking every day, "Is our legit? Is our legit? Is our legit?" You remember that? You remember that craze? It was nonstop.
yeah, and Aura is really great. Olfactory's awesome too. They carry some really good brands on the really niche side, like Mind Games, right?
Yeah.
Some of their pricing. My buddy is a huge Olfactory fan, and we were watching a basketball game last week, and he goes, "Dude, did you see what Mind Games pricing's there?" And I'm like, "That's a really good price." And so they're really knowledgeable. Yeah, Olfactory is really knowledgeable. Aura's really good, and that's kind of the vein we all live in, right? I don't want to be a fragrance net. We're not going to carry 6,000 SKUs. We're just not.
Yeah,
It's
they're
not
massive warehouse. That's a whole nother
right.
pain.
Yeah, I don't want to carry every item under the sun, but we want to create a community, where you can actually talk and you can actually see pricing and you can, yeah, maybe learn some more about the brands. And we're going to get, as Lux grows, we're going to get more and more in depth with that and try to do reviews and work with partners like yourself and, providing you with different fragrances. But it's crazy just to see. Yeah, it's just kind of crazy to see some of these discounters really rise because they have good pricing. Jason.
Jay, they might have been right on that one. Sorry, man. They thought you would fit. Now that's funny. You got a story. You got to do a whole video just on that, man. It's like I'm a buyer, and they said I was fishy. It's like, we're not
Jason, I
selling
live
to you,
like
man.
Jason, I live like 2 hours away from Aura. I'll go in there and say, hey, you guys got to help him out.
Yeah, help him out. That ain't looking too good. Oh, you was fishy. That's funny. Sheesh. Let's see here, man. Anybody got any other questions about how this distribution stuff kind of works? I know one thing we kind of touched on, but maybe we didn't just kind of lay it out plain. Me and you have talked about this on our own. When you see a site just out of a fragrance forever, what is kind of the main cause of that?
Yeah, I mean, with some of these discounters too, right? I'll give you an example. Mason Francis Kirkton, right, is a great brand. In some of these discounters, we're selling it so cheaply. And what happens when you sell it so cheaply is, consumers benefit, and that's amazing. But if you're only making 10, 15% on a brand like that, margin-wise, when that brand increases, because what a lot of these brands will do every year, especially as they get popular, is they slash distribution. Parfums de Marly is doing that right now. And they basically, this year, to give you insight, they basically have told us you get what you get, and you want it or not. So you're going to get more Initio and you're going to get less Parfums de Marly, and you're going to have to take it. And you have to say okay, or you have to go on. So that is something for us where that is partly why too, is you're going to sell through Delina so quickly. And so people are going to say, why is that out of stock? Why is that out of stock? Well, partly because you just can't get more in, especially at the pricing that you want to for some of these discounters. So it is a middle ground, right? And that's where I'm going to be upfront too and say, we're not always going to be the absolute best priced, but sometimes we have to price that level to stay in stock. Now I do have my limits, right? I'm not going to go say, hey, we're going to have to go sell Creative Ventus at 300 now. We're actually trying to lower our Creative Ventus price right now, but it's one of those things where for us, we're going to have to adjust to the marketplace. But at the same time, yeah, it's just going to be really tough to get at these heavily discounted prices because the brands hate it. They won't stop you from doing it, but they're going to pretty much cut distribution and only go to the people that want to sell at almost full retail.
Cool. Jason, I'm assuming that the question is for Brennan.
Yeah, we're going to be adding a lot more brands soon. We're going to be adding a lot of niche brands, and we're going to try to get them in one by one. And we're going to also be trying to do a lot of samples too. I've noticed a lot of our customer base is doing samples and then coming back to buy from us. So that, because it's very tough to get samples unless you're living in a big city with the Nordstroms. And even then they might even not give you samples.
Oh yeah, I've definitely been to some places are a little bit more free with it, and other ones, good luck. They don't even want you touching the bottles. Let me see here. Got another question. What is the minimum amount of units required to buy to get a discount? I'll just kind of speak on this real quick. When I went to Aura, this was very interesting to me. I don't quite understand this
Mhm.
concept. Aura on the website, you can buy one fragrance. You will get it at wholesale. If you go to the store, now I don't know if this is still the case, you had to buy three to
Mm.
get them at the wholesale price. That kind of blew my mind. I didn't really understand that concept. And also, I confirmed something. Aura separates their stock. They have an online sales stock, they have an in-store stock. How do I know this? When I went to Aura that day, I bought Greenlee. That was one of the fragrances I bought, Parfums de Marly Greenlee. I looked at the website before I went there, they said they didn't have it. And I got there at the store, there was 5 bottles of it. So I'm like, okay, they do 2 different stocks. I don't know what the reasoning is for that. Maybe it's because they got this stock at a certain price and this stock at another price. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's very fair. And I think sometimes too is some of these businesses that have that in-person retail they have to kind of balance that of like, well, if we have 10 people come in today for interested in Parfums de Marly, but we've run out of stock, because they could sell that 10 online really quickly, it's going to kind of hurt their word of mouth, especially in a market like Houston that's very fragrance forward. There's a lot of great people in Houston doing a lot of good stuff. I think for them, they have to kind of strike that balance. And sometimes it's operated on a completely different level. I know Aura very well from the online side, but yeah, it's very intriguing. And that's where I think you're going to see places like us and Olfactory do really well when we're just online, because we don't have the balance. If it goes to our warehouse, it's sellable and you're just going with it. We inspect all the goods that come in, we get inspected and we make sure everything's up to our standards, and then it gets sold. But
Cool.
yeah, it's a very interesting process if you have an in-person retail.
Do you have like a more direct answer for this question, or is it kind of open-ended?
Minimum units required. Look, it depends on the line for us, and you can reach out to us and we can see what we can do. I would generally say 2 to 3 bottles of the niche fragrances will be fine, and it's going to be about 5 or more for the designers. Um, we don't advertise that on the site, but please just reach out to us and say, hey, look, I want to buy 5 or 10 of these, and we'll see what we have in stock and we'll let you know. But yeah, I can definitely help you out on that.
Cool. Boxing Sense, I paid full retail for my Emerson X straight, but this was back when the major retailers were doing the deals where if you spent a certain amount, you would get a certain kind of gift card credit. So
Yeah, like
I
a rebate.
bought Amber's Own because it just wasn't on discounters at the time, and I think even now it's still hard to find on discounters. It's just one of those fragrances that you don't see on discounters. But yeah, that's interesting that you brought that up because that mine is full retail. We do have another good question here. Is Neiman's just overpriced? How did the discounters get the fragrance for so low?
Yeah, and so yeah, Neiman's just going to be overpriced, and they're often buying a lot of times direct from some of these brands where they're giving them a very good discount, because if Neiman Marcus comes knocking on your door, a lot of these brands are going, yes, please. And I guess the answer to how the discounters get fragrance so low is it's not that we're getting it lower than some of these other big name, like the Neiman's. We're not getting it pretty much cheaper than them. We're just selling it for cheaper. Is realistically, we're operating on different margins, and oftentimes Neiman does have a legal agreement that they have to sell it at a minimum pricing. But for us, we don't have to do that.
Yeah, yeah. I can kind of add on to that. Places like Neiman's and Bloomingdale's and Nordstrom, they have massive overhead because they are massive department stores with thousands of employees and thousands of corporate
Right.
employees. It's a much bigger operation where the profit margins just have to be higher
Yeah.
for them to stay open. You got to remember, these stores are struggling. They're not on the brink of closing, but they are not doing great. So they have no incentive to lower the cost of these fragrances. And also to your point where you brought up the fact that they kind of have like basically contracts where they
Yeah.
have to sell it at this price. That is exactly why you will see some brand, if you're familiar with these stores, if you have them in your area, you'll notice some brands might have a discount on something or maybe give a gift on
Yeah.
something, and then other ones they have nothing. And also, I have the luxury of being kind of close with the fragrance department manager at my local Neiman's Marcus. He's kind of just straight up with me. He tells me sometimes that we got this kind of agreement going on with this brand or that. So he doesn't give me like the full scoop, but it just pretty much proves the point that it's just a different business agreement, if you will. But they also know, or should I say, the brands, I think, know that they're still going to make the money they want to make from these major department stores, because most people are still going to buy the bulk of the fragrances from there.
Yeah.
And the discounters are still a sale at the end of the day. It's still a sale. It's a lower margin. Actually, well, you just said it. You're not really buying it any different from what they're buying it from. They're just selling it at a much higher markup.
Yeah, we're all buying it from the same place, right?
Yeah. So
it's like
the companies aren't complaining.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing about the distribution that's so unique, right? Is that they're going to tell you, you're going to see an ad for Macy's, and you're going to see Timothy Chalamet at Joey, but you're going to see Timothy Chalamet in a Dior ad, and you're going to go, "Oh, Macy's is your fragrance destination," right? And so you're going to say, "Okay, well, they're authorized, they're all of this, I know it's legit, all that," but it's like, it's very interesting that. Yeah, we're all buying from the same places, and these brands need us. They need distributors like me to increase their sales because, say Neiman Marcus can only buy 10 million of this niche brand. Well, if that company said, because most of them are owned by a big company, and they will say, hey, we need 20 million in sales. What are we going to do? Neiman can't buy more. Nordstrom's can't buy more. They're going to come to people like us. And that's the brunt of the fragrance market, is people like me. And yeah, so that's kind of the weird part, is they don't want to acknowledge that they need us and we exist, but we do. And that is the brunt of these sales.
Yeah. Taha, I don't know if that's how you say your name. I hope that you're asking some really good questions here. So you say, considering the tariffs implemented now, would it be wise to buy Middle Eastern fragrances to substitute designers in the American market? I think you just got in here. We kind of touched on this already, but it's okay to revisit it.
Yeah.
If you want to kind of tackle that, you can.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, costs are going to go up across the board, even if they are manufacturing here in the US due to the raw materials, right? And even if it was fully made here in the US, generally it's going to be more expensive. And so if they are not importing at all, say if it's a Middle Eastern fragrance, generally those are going to be made, say in the UAE, they have tariffs too. They didn't escape tariffs this last round of tariffs. So for us, it's still going to be expensive. And if they are cheaper, and I mentioned this earlier, is I think a lot of the cheaper items are going to get more expensive because margins are already pretty low on those, right? If you're buying a Jovan Musk for $9, it's not $1, right? The margins are pretty slim on that stuff. So you're generally going to see the Latafas, they're going to get hit a little bit harder, because if someone's bringing in a container of Latafa worth $400,000 and their prices just increased by 15%, their margins are generally going to be wiped out right there. So yeah, you're going to see some adjustments, but yeah. And for us too, and another disclaimer, it's not even day one. We're on ground zero on the whole tariff side. So we'll see how it shakes out. But yeah, I wouldn't have a strategy just yet. I think we just have to kind of see how this goes.
Yeah, you kind of just got to see what happens, and remember, it's going to affect the entire industry across the board. Doesn't matter where the fragrances come from, but I guess the one way you could look at it is scale. Yeah. A lot of Middle Eastern fragrances are already cheaper. They're still going to be the cheaper option. They're just going to cost more than they used to. And I just thought about something. Perfume 600 is a great source for a lot of the higher end Middle Eastern fragrances. I probably should have bought some more of those sooner. I'm kicking myself because I should have just jumped on. The problem is I can't sample any of them, so they're all blind buys. So I don't like to do that too often. Hey, Boxing Sense, I know you're kind of asking about Legitimacy. What Jason is saying is accurate, and that's part of the reason is they're kind of a victim of their own success. Number one, they got robbed last year, like literally smash and grabbed, and number two, because they're more known now in the city, they get a lot of people that ain't got no etiquette coming up in there. So that's why they tell them don't touch the bottles anymore. And literally people will walk in there and see the sign that says don't touch the bottles, and they'll just grab the bottles. So unfortunately, yeah, it's not as enjoyable of an experience as it used to be to go in Legitimacy, but still a good store with a lot of brands, and they're always constantly bringing in new brands. So, it's a place to go to experience some of the niche brands you don't see in the Neiman's and Bloomingdale's.
Yeah, and ask your local Nordstroms too. I had a friend ask for Mind Games and Nordstrom's, and they said, "Yeah, we actually have it. We just don't put it out." and they brought out this $400 fragrance they retail it at and dropped it and said, well, if you want to try it, let me know. He's going, why don't you let anyone know it's here? And they go, oh, we don't know if it will sell. So they just threw it in the back. So often ask those people too, if you're on a sampling spree, just ask them. Worst they're going to say is, I don't think so, right?
Yep. Or that I never heard of that fragrance.
Yeah. You have to remember a lot of those people at the counter are, they're just trying to get by like everyone. So they're not exactly fragrance heads.
If you run into a major retail store and actually run into a fragrance enthusiast that's a seller, you got a gem, and you'll know. You can tell quick, and they can tell you're into it very quick. So it'll be a different interaction versus the ones that are just selling stuff.
I had a Nordstrom lady in Denver actually bring out a notepad and said, do you have 10 more minutes? And I was like, sure. She took down notes of the brands and the notes I liked. And she goes, I'm going to use this. I don't know anything. They don't give me anything. They just tell me what's on sale and what we can do. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'll give you 10 minutes and you can just kind of ask me questions. But yeah, so just remember that sometimes it's they're just trying to do the job.
Yeah. All right, guys. I mean, any more questions, feel free to throw them in the chat real quick. I think we're kind of reaching the point where we can kind of wrap this up. I think the point has been made. Again, Brennan's store is luxperfume.com, Lux. And he's already opened the door to you guys. You can ask him a question. If there's a fragrance you want to see if he can get his hands on, I'm sure he'll look into it for you.
Absolutely.
And he's certainly looking to add more brands. His store is new, so he's not going to just throw everything on there. That's not how you build a store. You got to take your time with it, but and if anything, if you've been around through the growth of some of these discounters that wasn't like Fragrance Net or Fragrance X, are they even still active?
Fragrance
X?
They're active. How I can be nice about this. It's an interesting company, put it that way.
Very interesting.
Very, very interesting run. It's very old school. I don't find their prices to be competitive whatsoever.
That's because they're not.
Yeah, and I generally don't hear positive things. Even for how big a Fragrance Net is, the reason why they're so big is most people a lot of times will go to them, or they will at least check their pricing before they go somewhere else. And yeah, it's just it's a weird industry. Jason, you definitely can. Any of you who are in the live stream, reach out to me. It's info@luxperfume.com at the website. Reach out and say, hey, I was on this stream, and we'll hook you up with a bit of a discount. And
Jason, you couldn't help yourself, could you? Get a military discount. You couldn't help yourself. Hey, let me get a discount on top of that discount.
Are we able to pick a winner? Or I don't know how we can do that.
I don't know. The problem is I have never done anything like that. Isn't there something called like random comment picker? Is that something you do in a live stream, or do you do it like later?
This is my first live stream, honestly, so I could not tell you. Boxing Sense, I will get in Le Labo another 13 shortly. Actually, I'm working on getting some Le Labo in. That is a brand that about a year and a half ago cut their distribution by over 80%.
I can guess that.
Yeah.
You can't find them anywhere.
Yeah. We have a local store here where I live in Austin, and it's crazy. Even them, they're like, oh, we only carry a couple ones mainly in stock. And so it's very hard to get, but I'm getting some. And please reach out to me and say, hey, if you got put on the list too, I think you will get a notification. But I will make a little note for you and say, hey, if you're on the stream asking questions, you've been asking great questions, we'll make sure you get one.
Yeah, because the chat is saved, so I think we'll probably do it after the fact. Because again, I just don't know how to do that.
I'm putting you on the spot.
Spend 10 minutes on the stream trying to figure that out.
Yeah, I'm throwing you on the spot. I just thought, you know what?
But of course, you can just do that.
Jason, you just got double discount. I don't know if we can pick you.
Yeah, man, how many more you want? He said as many as that's how you do it. You get as many as you can. Yeah, glad you guys enjoyed the stream. Hold on, is this another question? Will you be carrying the D&G Velvet collection line? That's interesting. Are they on discounters? The Velvet, anybody? That's for anybody. I don't remember ever seeing them.
Yeah, if they are, it's very hard to get. The problem with a lot of those collections is when Guerlain has a very great you know, a lot of these brands have very like exclusive collections, and you can get them. I have access to them at times, but you get so few, and they generally sell so quick that it's really tough. It's really, really tough. And that's where my brain goes from distributor to retailer. We want to retail some of it, but then at the same time, we have distribution clients that also need these items. So we're kind of playing that middle ground as we ramp up to say, hey, some of these we can't just stock right now. But I see Nathaniel said, why are so many distributors located in Texas? Well,
Texas is good for business, brother.
yeah, we live in it's a very diverse and big state. There's not too many in Austin. I'm kind of the lone guy in Austin. There's a very interesting guy who lives here part time that makes like nostalgic like 1980s perfumes. And Zerina, I believe, is the website name. I might be pronouncing that wrong, but it's very interesting. But yeah, Texas has Texas is a very unique, you know, economy, and Houston's very much a community based. And so Brian at Aura is in Houston. You know, there's a lot of distributors in Houston, partly because it's just a huge city, and they've a lot of times built a very big community. And Houston has an absolute massive community for fragrances. I know that firsthand. I'm going down there in 2 weeks to go meet with some people, and it's very, very interesting. To just kind of see how that works. So I don't have a direct answer for you, Nathaniel, but it's just kind of how we've all kind of grouped up. Mostly it's either going to be in the Houston, Texas area. You're going to be a few in LA, and then you're going to have Miami, New York, and that's about it. Generally for distribution, that's generally about it. And that's the funny part is we're generally some pretty close to any of the coasts or major airports.
Cool. And just want to repeat the store information.
It is luxperfume.com, Lux perfume.com.
Yeah, and guys, I do have an affiliate link to the store in the description, and that's in every video since I met Brennan, which was a month ago.
Yeah.
You know, I'm bad at like announcing the stuff, but I knew we were gonna have this live stream, so I didn't really kind of want to push it until we had this conversation.
Yeah, please, if you're gonna go to our site from this live stream, please use his link. And yeah, we'll make sure that we support Elliot too on this. He was really great in getting me on here, and yeah, hope we can do this again soon.
All right. I think that kind of wraps it up, guys. We're just over an hour, which is perfect. I didn't really want this to be a super long stream. I appreciate you guys for engaging and asking some really good questions. Do you guys carry Boudicca? That's an answer. That's a question
No,
for you.
we don't currently. If Olfactory doesn't, I would look around. You can email me too personally, and I will tell you if I think a place has got a good price on it. I'm happy to help you out on that, but it's a tough line.
Yeah.
But yeah,
my understanding is since Christian Provenzano, kind of left, they're more open to being on discounters, and I'm seeing them pop up a lot more.
Yeah.
Jason, I can't stand you. You see this? This guy. Hey man, we're going to link back up, man. I gotta have words with you. Yeah, man, absolutely, Nathaniel, man. I'm glad. Brennan, thank you for coming on. This was a really great discussion. You guys know I'm a little bit more nerdy about things I get, take a strong interest in. I don't just talk about smelling good. I'm interested in the entire business. I love the wearing experiences. I love what you can get out of them, but I'm also just curious about the business. If a brand message me and say, hey man, you want to come check out our operations, I would be all over that. I want to see how they do business. I'm a little more nerdy with stuff like that. So, and I know you guys, or maybe not necessarily you guys directly, but people ask questions about why is it done this way? Why is it done that way? And, they just genuinely don't have an understanding about, how the business side of this thing works, because, they're not thinking about it that way, and that's fine. I don't expect everybody to do so, but I figured this would be a good conversation and maybe make you either feel more comfortable about shopping with discounters if you just kind of understand how they work, and also understand that the best way to shop for anything in this hobby is to look around for the best price.
Yeah, education is so big, and again, Elliot, I really appreciate you having me on, and yeah, just talking about it, because it's very rarely that I get to actually talk about all of this type of info and stuff, and actually be useful, right? I think that's the main thing, right? Is like I said, we want to educate you guys and kind of show you the behind the scenes, because all of you guys are super knowledgeable. And if I can help fill in some gaps, or at least, yeah, answer some questions, and yeah, just be more knowledgeable, save your money. Don't buy full retail. That
Yeah,
would
don't buy
be,
full retail. Yeah, we can officially say it's nothing more than a higher markup.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. If you're buying from the same
buying the
store,
fragrance at the same price across the board, but they're selling it at a 40% markup, which is that's I think that's like the standard number. They're probably going higher than that, to be honest, with some of
niche
these
brands are
fragrances.
insane. I
Yeah,
look at some of the niche brand pricing, then I see their official pricing and going, you're making $200 to $300 a bottle.
yeah. I mean, it's wild. And then remember, people do go in and buy these fragrances in bulk. you know, I remember what we were talking about. Our local niche perfumery, Legitimacy. They had just gotten in Thameen.
Oh
I
yeah,
think Thameen kind of started distributing in the United States.
yeah,
I see a lot of that happening now. Brands that normally didn't distribute here are starting to do so, which is great. But they had just kind of come on the scene, and of course, Carved Oud is their most popular one because it's similar to Oud Wood, but a little bit more detailed of a take on that scent DNA. And Joey from Legit told me, man, the guy came in and bought 5 bottles of it, 5 bottles of Carved Oud at full retail.
yeah,
And at discount, I don't even know what it is at discounter because I got mine full retail too. It just wasn't available on discounters yet. But that's insane to me. 5 bottles. Like, what do you need five
yeah.
bottles for? Now the guy had money. I mean, I think he was a ex wrestler, so
Ooh,
professional wrestler. So
that's
he had
interesting.
money.
Yeah, that's yeah. And I'll see you guys.
But that's just one story. People do that stuff all the time.
Oh yeah, almost every day, I guess. But and it's seeing the chat too, guys. Please reach out if there's. I know you've asked. Everyone's asked a few questions about what we have in stock, or do you carry this? But that really helps us too. We actually even have a little form that you can fill out too, because we want to hear from actually people buying this, right? I don't want to make just a guess and say, yeah, we'll carry all of this, and then not, have no one interest. It's just very, yeah, it's a very weird world we live in. And so I just want to make sure that we're carrying items that people actually want,
Yeah,
so yeah, please reach out, and never feel like you're bugging me, because we want to hear from people. And I appreciate you,
absolutely.
Jason, on that as well.
Yeah, Jason, he does discussions as well with a guy that's actually in. Is he in Dallas? He's in Dallas, right? Sips. Yeah. So he's
Okay.
actually in Dallas himself, and yeah, you would be great for their show because it's the same thing. Kind of talk about things a little bit more
Yeah.
in depth, and just have great conversations around fragrances.
Oh yeah,
So
for sure, Jason. Hit me up, man.
if that happened, yeah, I would definitely hook you guys up for sure. And
Yeah.
yeah, the mean cheap. Yeah, you're right. Boxing sense. The mean they go for nothing now. I
Yeah.
mean, and to be fair, even at full retail, they weren't. Some of them were not that expensive anyway. Compared to other stuff, I think
Yeah.
Carved Oud was like going for 220. Which is a lot for a 50 mil, but it is an extra. But yeah, you compare it to some like Creed, it's like that's cheap compared to them. But yeah, the discounted rate now is nothing for those fragrances. So
Yeah, and that's why some of them really fight that, because once it gets put on the discounters, they know there's a section of people that will never go to the main spot and buy it, or they won't go in person, right? Most people don't live in New York and want to go to these shops,
yeah,
even though New York's huge. They're sitting there going, well, how can I smell this? I want to sample it. I want to know more about it, right? They don't reach out to guys like you that can give an awesome detailed review. These brands aren't doing it. And so that's also something we want to do too, is help support creators like yourself and say, hey, we'll get you this fragrance, and let us know what you think, right? Because it's a community.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, Jason. Yeah, I'll definitely get that to you because that would be a good conversation, I think.
Yeah.
And I'll even try to jump on that day. Hopefully, I'm not busy or nothing. All right, guys. I think we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up there. I don't see any other questions popping up. So yeah, listen, appreciate you guys all tuning in. Brennan, thanks again for
Yeah.
coming on to the stream. If we have another way we want to approach this conversation, we may have another live stream. I mean, I
Yeah.
like talking about fragrances from this standpoint. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for this stream, guys. Appreciate you all. I hope you all have a have had a good week so far and continue to do so. And until next time, be well, smell well. See you all next time in the fragrance well. Take care. Oh yeah, hit that like button on the way out. Thank you.